I'm thrilled to be here today with Julie Starr, who is a friend of mine and one of the women who really is highly recognised in coaching as an author, coach, keynote speaker, thought leader, I would say, somebody who really contributes to raising the depth and the height of coaching. For those of you who've listened to other recordings, I hope you'll be pleased to notice that it doesn't sound like I'm shouting my guests down. We've got some new microphones now and we should be of equal volume. So, Julie Starr, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here and good to have this gorgeous new tech.
Good. I'm thrilled to know that you've found some time to come and talk to me and share some of your story, some of your wisdom with our listeners.
No, it's great to be here.
Good. And that's really where I wanted to start, actually, with your journey into coaching, because like the rest of us, we didn't start out being coaches. No. So how did it happen? What's your story?
Well, there's there's the factual part of it, and then there's the sense of it, isn't there? The factual part is, I was originally, so way back in the day, I don't know, in my early 20s, I was a project manager. I worked in IT initially, and then kind of people change, doing large-scale change programs, managed some big chunky projects for some, like financial houses and things. And what I realised was, the element of the change that I really enjoyed was working with the people and helping people through change and helping people realise their own inner resources and how attitudes and beliefs affected change. And it kind of, all of that interest in a work situation started to correspond to an interest I'd always had in my private life, which was, what's life about and what makes us happy, successful and fulfilled. And I'd always been a nut for, applied psychologies or reading success books or, and I kind of had these parallel worlds really, which was one was my work life and one was the stuff that I'd do on a weekend or, courses I'd go on and books I'd read. And, I would stand in front of Waterstone's self-help section, avidly and by what I was interested in. And then as things do, those two paths kind of merged and came together and it became the work that I do. It became, I realised that I loved working with people. I loved to support people both one-to-one and as groups and in community, that I do have the teacher archetype. So I am able to articulate stuff that I've studied and knowledge that I've gleaned and experience that I've journeyed with, and distill it and distinguish it in a form that other people can find palatable or gives them access to a simpler version of my own journey, if you like. So yeah, those things came together when I was probably about in my early 30s. I decided to give up this thing called project management and consultancy and brave this new kind of direction of coaching, kind of before the profession felt that certainly as established as it is now. So I remember being told I would never make my living as a coach, that there was, no one knew what coaching was, and if they did know, they would never pay for it, which was great. It's great to be sat here now remembering that and how scary that felt at the time.
Isn't it just? Isn't it just? I remember exhibiting. I say exhibiting, I think I'd invested in a pop-up banner.
Yes.
At a CIPD conference many years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody walking past actually pointing at me and laughing. And saying, so what is a coach then? What are you going to do? Tell me what to wear every day and what to have for breakfast. And we've come a long way, haven't we?
Yes, yes, we have. And we've known each other quite some time. So we've seen it emerge and evolve in very exciting ways.
Yeah. So I was so interested to hear the part of your story that I hadn't heard before. So I'd always known that you were once a project manager. I didn't know that there was that backstory of you having had a personal fascination for human psychology. And I kind of listen for that and wait for that when I'm recruiting people onto our courses, because I think it's there in most of us. Like you, I was a strange, and I don't know if you were a strange child. I was a strange child in that.
I'm still a strange child.
That's why we get on well. But in that, when other people had posters of David Cassidy or Mark Bolan on their wall, I had a poster of Freud and Jung.
You really?
Yeah, I did. Wow. And I remember reading Games People Play, and I'm okay, you're okay.
I read that,
when I was like a teenager, when other people were reading Jackie magazine.
Yes.
So I'm fascinated in even what sits behind that, and we don't have time for that today, but what was it that drew us to have that fascination?
Yes, it is. It's an inner calling, isn't it?
Isn't it?
That you start to recognise and stop resisting and stop putting in a cupboard when everybody else is watching, and then just declare yourself at some point and then realise it's okay.
Yeah,
certainly.
So from that moment, you said, there's the factual side of it.
Yes.
What about the other side of it, the way in which you've acquired this learning and deepened your learning?
Yes, and that, it's this journey between being informed by your external world and then towards being informed by your internal world. And my external world was saying that I had to read about things like TA and NLP and, different applied psychologies. And certainly I did that, and I went on various things and qualifications and things. And then gradually over time, I realised that I'd sort of run out of road with that, not because I'd run out of material to study or to digest, but that it wasn't giving me. There was a calling that wasn't being met by reading books and attending those types of conventional courses, and as you do, I think, when you start to recognise yourself as a truth seeker or a spiritual seeker or a quester of some sort, you end up in India. And certainly I ended up in India, and I think I've been to India 6 times in the last 7 years, and I'm due to go again in September, which is kind of visit number 7 or 8. And I've done all the sacred sites, or not all of them, but certainly many of the sacred sites, and meditated in caves and bathed in the Ganges and stayed in ashrams and all that good stuff that you do to kind of think, okay, what else? What next? And I'm not recommending that anybody do that. I'm certainly not saying that anybody should do that. It's simply that that's where my breadcrumbs took me, and that's the direction of travel that I followed. And it started to give me something else in terms of a learning, which was about the ego and the self and our sense of selves. And as I've been saying for many years, that as a coach, one of our greatest challenges is to get ourselves out of the way in a coaching conversation and in a coaching relationship. And whilst I've always known that's true, this study of the ego and the mind and the Maya, this illusory sense we have of ourselves and our world, it's given me a much richer, deeper access now to start to understand this base of well-being that exists within all of us, and that when we are willing to surrender to a practice, certainly to the journey and the sense of a quest, but are willing to surrender to a practice, our own practice, and defined by ourselves, for ourselves, that as coaches we become so much more powerful and so much more effective. And conversely, in my own experience, we are doing so much less in terms of during the conversation, certainly around making the business work. I think, I can't remember whether when I last spoke to you, I said it to your community, but there is this lovely contradiction with becoming an established coach, whereby it begins with some turbulence and struggle and effort and work, and it feels like that, and it can feel like, battling against what is sometimes. There are these other levels almost of consciousness we get to where things start to go in flow. So the contrast is that effortless in flow, ease seems to follow this hard work, making it difficult. I think that, and I always think we have to go, I don't think we can go straight to, I would love to be able to say to everybody, it's easy, just relax, just be with what is, go be in flow. I think there is a journey, a personal journey, an individual journey, something quite idiosyncratic we have to go on to in order to arrive at that. But certainly for me by now, things feel really in flow, and it's wonderful. I love my coaching. I love my coaching work.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is anymore. I'm calling it coaching simply because I'm sat in front of you, but by now, I'm not sure it is.
So what is it? What? Yeah, because I know you as as a human being. I know you're someone who speaks and writes about coaching. Not sure that I've ever experienced being coached by you.
Yes.
So if you can say this in this podcast, but because I don't know if time will allow, but
yes.
What is it like to be coached by you? What's the experience of being coached by Julie Starr?
You would have to ask my clients. What I sense is that there's what's happening apparently in the conversation, and then there's what's happening more profoundly in the conversation. And I'm reflecting upon what people have said to me afterwards. So I had somebody come in with a migraine the other day, and I was bothered by that because I wondered how that would affect the conversation. And by the end of the conversation, the migraine had gone. And the lady said to me, it's all right, I knew the migraine would go, because I knew when I spend time with you, there's an ease that happens. There's an easing that happens. And I'm not sure if you'd have spotted that from, if you'd have recorded the conversation, what was happening with her. But I think we communicate on such different levels with each other, don't we? We communicate through the words and the linguistics of what's happening, but we're also present with somebody, and we're with somebody, and there's an energy that we're offering into that space. Yeah. This is what I mean about getting ourselves out of the way of the conversation, and that there is this well-being that underlies everything we are, because when we can access that state of well-being within us and bring that as an offering to people, I think that can ease something for people as much as the calculations of the conversation can offer. Yeah. And obviously, as a novice, when we come in, we're all about the calculations of the conversation. We're about how effective our questioning is, the structure, the sequence of the beginning, middle, and the completion of a conversation. We're thinking about the different topics and the different levels of the topics we're talking about. There's the mechanics, isn't there?
Yes.
But there's also ourselves as an offering.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm really curious to dig a bit deeper here, because I spend my time training coaches and then continuing to develop many of the coaches that I've trained. So I recognise something in your description of the sort of struggle in the beginning, yes, and then an easing.
Yes.
And we sit here today in advance of a supervision session that I'm going to run, and it's a closed group that I work with. And the same 6 people have been coming for 3 years now.
Huh.
And as you said that, I thought about them.
Yes.
I thought about the topics, the questions, the issues that they brought in the first year, 18 months, and the glory of them now.
Yes, the maturing of that.
Yeah. And the different questions that they're asking themselves, and the ease with which they work. But I suppose, as many people listening to this podcast will be fairly new in the process, I guess they'll be asking, so what do I do? What do I do to follow my own breadcrumbs and get to a point where the process is not king and my sense of well-being is very present for both me and my client.
I think what I would encourage people to understand is, A, they are very welcome and they are very wanted and they are very needed in our community. So to feel like an insider rather than anything else. So that they are welcome and that it is a well-trodden path, and everybody that goes before you is supporting you to continue at a pace that's smooth and perhaps has some of those rocks and valleys and things just eased out a little bit. And I certainly think that's very possible. In terms of my own journey, I notice how much more accelerated people's journey through those stages can now be.
Me too. I noticed that. Yeah.
Just partly because of the access to the tools, the communities, the consciousness around this, the available resources in terms of just people and skills and all the things that Barefoot Coaching provides probably. The other thing that I would say is it's a very personal journey. So whilst you are welcome in this community and it's an interdependent community and you are welcome in this tribe, you must traverse this journey as an individual because you are bringing to bear upon it, that is your gifts and your offering, everything that has informed who you are up until now. So there is a personal sense to this, and that's the joy in it, that's the discovery in it, that's the revelation for the individual in it, and that's almost a gate that people pass through when they commit to the road ahead, when they realise the person that benefits the most by them being a coach is them. And make no mistake, that's an essential start point for any of us. Whilst we love it to be a service industry and we think about contribution and sense of purpose, it's ourselves that in which the most profound benefit and the most profound change must take place. Absolutely. And so it is a personal journey. It's a labour of love in terms of joy, discovery, revelation, letting go of, rather than there's a need for anybody to rub themselves out and draw themselves again as a coach. It's this, as I'm sure you'll use the analogy, it's letting go of the skin of an onion that's that's dried and flaky and ready to just fall away, to reveal what's ripening within and what's ready to reveal itself. And so I'm excited for people that are new into the field, because I know this self-discovery and self-learning, it's joyful, it's hard, it's painful, and it's angst, and at the same time, good is coming.
Yeah.
And, it's a sweet pain, really.
Yeah. Beautifully put. Beautifully put. So what about those people who do their course?
Yes.
Learn the questioning,
yes.
Learn the models,
yes.
Learn the techniques,
yes.
And just keep doing that.
I think that's a shame, because I think it's a bit like you're scrabbling around on the surface of something, and there's a whole wealth of other places to go that are so personally enriching. It becomes a bit formulaic, and yet, like stabilizers on a bike, at some point, maybe naturally, whether you consciously decide to throw them away or life just has them drop off because they got a bit rusty and a bit rotten. I wonder if everybody starts to just relax and sink a bit more. As I'm talking about it, I'm imagining someone swimming with water wings, and you're elevated on the top of the water in a way that isn't natural, but you're still, you're surviving, and you're happy to be surviving because you're not drowning. But there's nothing as sweet as casting those water wings away and actually realising I can be self-supporting in this, and the water feels blissful. It's that, I wonder if for everybody we reach that choice point of, am I simply going to cling to these learnt tools and knowledge in my kit bag, whether that be NLP, whether that be TA, whatever it is, whatever clever trick we've picked up in our coaching qualification course, are we going to lug around that stuff like Jacob Marley with his boxes and chains and just hiking all this, and I've learned something else, and it's this chain's getting heavier because there's so much on it by now. And at some point you just cast off that and then just see what's there.
Yeah.
and then see what's revealed when you just think, okay, unadulterated as a coach, who am I?
Yeah.
And how do I coach?
Yeah.
And that's exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting. Actually, you just reminded me, I watched a gardening program last night.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about planting some trees in my garden, and this program was about planting trees.
Yes.
And the woman who was planting them said that you should only stake them to half their height.
Right.
Because when they're young, they're really bendy, and they do need some staking, because otherwise they fall over.
Yes.
But never stake them to their whole height, because already you're limiting their ability to stand tall on their own. Quite. They have to do a bit of it for themselves.
Quite. And that's my frustration about, so I love that since I came as fledgling into this, completely unformed field, that we've got these associations and professions and qualifications and rigor and principles and beliefs and values and all the code of ethics and all that lovely stuff. But if that means we're staking somebody too high, I think we've really lost something. I think if someone's still looking at the code of ethics and rules before they're going in and thinking, what can I do and what can't I do, something's getting lost, because that's a recipe too far. That's a recipe that spoils the cook from just expressing themselves. Yeah,
that's really interesting. Again, you triggered a thought in my mind. Many years ago, I read a book by a psychiatrist called Raj Persaud.
Yeah.
I think he used to be on Good Morning or something as the resident sort of shrink.
Yes.
And he'd written a book, I think it was called Staying Sane, about mental health and about psychology. But within it, he quoted a piece of research about the effectiveness of sort of trained counsellors, therapists, and people. Somebody who really had good people skills, who met you down the pub and listened to you. And actually, there was very little difference between the 2 years of training and the years of training. And you and I are not saying don't train and not join the associations, but it is also something about, I think, harnessing all the glory of yourself, all your own life experiences, all following your own breadcrumbs. And because I sometimes see in novice coaches, you're absolutely right, they rub themselves out and they become what they think a coach should look like and who they were when they came in on the first day.
They've lost the riches in that. Yes, I absolutely think do the courses. I wish there was I looked for a course. There was no course. When I was starting out, I think I had a book, Coactive Coaching was the only book I ever read on coaching, and then figured it out from there, and then which is why I ended up writing the coaching manual and Brilliant Coaching and stuff.
So did you never train as a coach?
No.
Neither did I.
I've never been on a coach training course, and yet now I lecture at universities and things on coaching.
And we write books.
Well, I wrote the book I needed. That's why it's a manual, because it's a Haynes guide with beliefs and values and principles, and that's what I needed. And so I wrote. You end up at that space really wanting to give back what you didn't have. This is what I'm saying about accelerating people's path. It's all there. But no, I think absolutely what I like about your course particularly is that people come on it, and yes, all the stuff of effective coaching is there, but it's also taking a frame that says you come in as an individual, and we want to protect that, and we want to help you go on your own personal journey with this. And whether people realise it or not, they go on their own road of trials a little bit to realise, actually, this isn't just a learnt skill and a behaviour and a trick that I acquire. It's a way of being, and it's something I have to challenge myself and my own beliefs and my own values in order to do that. And I think that's what's a rich journey in coach training. I think if it was simply going and learning, formulaic stuff, then I think that's a shame. This is why the weekend courses where you go and learn, I don't know, the GROW model or something similar, and come out thinking that the GROW model is coaching. That's sad. That saddens me.
Thank you for saying that. Actually, the course that I wrote was like the coaching manual that you wrote, because I had trained in psychotherapy and walked away from that, and then I'd gone on following loads of different breadcrumbs including NLP
Yes,
and solution-focused therapy.
Yes.
And then I wrote that course, which was making sense of all those breadcrumb trails that I'd followed.
Yes. Yeah. And then let, those that go as well, take it to another level and another level.
Throw some things out that they don't want, acquire new things, and it's a delight to see that so many coaches that we meet who've been through our training program and others are not sort of cookie cutter shapes.
Yes.
They're all their own shape with a different mix of things that they bring to it.
Yeah.
We are running out of time on this podcast, but final thoughts, I suppose, for any new coaches or experienced coaches listening to us.
I would just encourage people to remember that this is an individual journey, and you can only get it right, and let your attention drive let your intention drive your attention. So your intention, let that to be reveal the best of you as a coach, and everything else will flow from that. That simple intention to be the best coach you can be, to find the people, the places, the experiences that will help inform that. I think that's been one of the greatest driving forces I could have in terms of fostering my own discovery and helping me reach those people, those events, those experiences that have really enriched me and my practice.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just wish them all the very best of British luck.
Yeah, I can feel that. I love that. I love your generosity and welcoming new coaches to our tribe. And I feel a really quiet, renewed excitement about the profession just sitting here talking to you.
I think we both have that.
Yeah. Thank you, Julie Starr.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.